Call to order the Monday, February 10th, 2020 Ellsworth City Council meeting. All councilors are present. Just a reminder, if you have any electronic devices that are going to go off, please silence them, Mike. And
Always the bad guy.
Pledge of Allegiance. Are you good?
I'm good.
Rules of order, we follow Robert's Rules of Order and any rules that we adopt at the annual organizational meeting. Item number 4, adoption of the Ellsworth City Council minutes of January 13th, 2020 regular council meeting.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and approved. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. City managers report.
For anyone who's noticed some activity down at the harbor, Gaff Tech has moved in, has begun a fuel tank replacement and upgrade project this week, and that's expected to be completed in the next 4 to 6 week time frame, well in advance of the opening of the park in mid-May. February 17th is President's Day. City Hall, all departments and facilities, with the exception of essential personnel, will be closed. Trash collection, however, the schedule does not change. March 3rd is the presidential primary election day. There's also one referendum question on the ballot as well, in addition to the primary items. March 5th, there will be a marijuana workshop here at City Hall from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., snow date of March 10th, same time and place, put on by the legal department and the Maine Municipal Association. So I'd encourage anyone who wants to get up to date on what's going on with marijuana, both recreational and medicinal, attend the workshop on the 5th. Finally, March 14th and 15th, which I believe is a Saturday, Sunday, will be Ellsworth's Maine Bicentennial Celebration, which this year is going to be combined with Winter Carnival activities. Check the city's website for more details, and that's it.
Thank you. Item number 6, committee reports. Any councilors attend any committees and have an update?
The Harbor Committee hasn't met. It will meet on Wednesday this week.
Okay, so no report.
I can't make it up.
I have one from the Recreation Committee. The Recreation Committee met, and we had members from the community that are very interested in pickleball and looking for a different location for pickleball courts. And so they came to talk to us and to discuss, we're looking for a different location and how much it was gonna cost. It's very early. They were just wondering what the feasibility was, and they're gonna do some more research and get back to us. And we had a parade discussion that the Heart of Ellsworth is no longer going to do the parades. And they're gonna have another meeting to discuss what we're gonna do next to have, who is going to run the parades. The Recreation Committee will be in charge of that, though. We had a written report, Shane wasn't there, from the YMCA. The ice rink, obviously, is probably a swimming pool today, but hopefully it'll freeze again soon. And then we had new members approved. Lily and Frank, these are student members, and Benton Bird were both approved to be student members of the committee from now on. And we discussed the bicentennial and winter carnival as City Manager Cole talked about. We also talked about the dog park. Nick Sorrow has already raised some money, and he has an online website and encourages people to go donate money there. And we're still looking for a location for that, though, as well. Next month will be the budget requests, and that's it.
Thank you. Other reports.
We have
Georgia.
the HCTC Steering Committee. We have a few members here, if you'd like to get up.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Thomas. I'm the chairperson of the school board. Since the Ellsworth Business Development Corporation came to the Ellsworth School Department about 18 months ago, there have been many discussions about how this venture would benefit our community and its need for a skilled workforce. Hancock County Technical Center was built about 40 years ago. Ellsworth owns the building, and it is a component of the educational system of Ellsworth. However, it is run as a center and offers programming to all Hancock County students. The student numbers at the Hancock County Technical Center have grown over the years, and the course offerings have changed and expanded. We currently offer 10 programs. Within the walls of the center, you will find culinary arts, health occupations, biomedical science, early childhood education, diesel technology, multimedia design, law enforcement, and automotive technology. 2 of our programs are satellite programs: welding technology being taught at Bucksport High School, and marine services technology at Mount Desert Island High School. Our current plan is to add cybersecurity and/or hospitality, travel, and tourism in the near future. Education has changed. It's no longer all book learning. These are some of our brightest students pursuing a skill and a career about which they are very passionate. Our dream is to have a facility that is used for more than the 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock time frame. The new building or renovation would house adult education programs and secondary education programs. A course no longer offered during school hours due to lack of participants may be offered in the evening to a large group. The ability to expand the use of the Technology Center would allow us to offer more coursework and trainings that would further develop the area's workforce. Those of us who really believe that career technical education is an appropriate and viable pathway for many of our students and citizens are excited to have this opportunity to partner with the Ellsworth Business Development Corporation in this venture.
My name is Jake Taylor. I'm a EBDC board member at Ellsworth Business Development Corporation, and also on the HCTC Feasibility Study Committee. I wanted to give a little bit of history of the idea of the feasibility study. During one of our EBDC workshops, we quite often will throw around different problems facing either the community or the business community specifically, pretty much anything that's going on that's addressable in our area. And one of the reoccurring problems or issues that comes up is the availability of workforce. In identifying that problem, one of the solutions that we came up with was HCTC, and really CTE 2.0. And CTE 2.0 is kind of covered under this larger umbrella and a topic that's been talked about on the national stage, the state stage, and locally as a vehicle for training the next workforce, the next generation of workforce. So looking at HCTC and the potential problems that they face or issues that they face and what enhancements could be made to help that perform even better, we quickly discovered overall square footage is an issue up there, and also making the space that's there quickly convertible to be able to be retooled to meet local market demand and student interest at the time. EBDC, after discovering this, engaged the local sending school superintendents, as well as the Ellsworth School Board, to introduce the idea and get a sense of support. And it was there that we learned that there had already been efforts behind the scenes to see what could happen with the school building currently. In 2017, an application was submitted to get HCTC on the state's funding schedule for renovation or new construction. After that list was compiled and sifted through, HCTC landed at number 18. It was estimated that the funding cycle in those years would only cover the first 8 to 12 projects, maybe 13. The next funding cycle would put a new building into use. Based off the older metrics and the schedules of the past, it would look like it would be 2033 before a new building would be able to be used. And that's not an exact science, because it's not an exact science on how often these funding cycles come up, but that was the best of our ability, what we could figure. After learning this, EBDC introduced the idea of a P3 to provide the funds for a building renovation or replacement, which is a challenging approach, but it was something that we all felt strong enough that we needed to explore that as far as possible. So the next steps were to define the size and scope and the need of this project. And the most logical step was to have a feasibility study done specifically regarding the building. The HCTC feasibility study committee is comprised of 2 city council members, 2 Ellsworth school board members, 2 EBDC members, and 1 community member. Thus far, that group has, we've done lots of internal and local research. We've talked with the school department extensively, the city council extensively, along with doing just tons of digging and really understanding what a project like this entails. And through all of that, we issued an RFQ, and we've interviewed, in response to that RFQ, we had 4 firms that submitted interests, and we have interviewed 4 firms, and we have tentatively selected a firm that we would like to hire. And we are in the process right now of working on a complete scope of work and negotiating a contract, in hopes to formally present a contract in the near future.
I personally would like to thank EBDC and the Ellsworth School Department for identifying the need and their willingness and expertise to support the need. We've been working hard towards this goal. You know, I want to bring up just a few recent news stories that I've seen and heard. Just recently saw a local business featured on WABI TV5, part 1 of a series. Local trade businesses struggling to find workers, with Maine being one of the oldest states in the nation with very few young people going into the trades. It could stifle the economy. Also another one on News Center, Maine. Due to an increasing shortage of skilled workers, Maine lawmakers and education leaders say part of the solution is expanding career and technical education, and are asking the legislature to support a bond to update the facilities because the equipment and buildings are outdated. Another one that is just, it's exciting to me to see this partnership. It's a testament to the commitment that businesses, communities, and educators have in working together on this. I was very excited to hear recently that a Maine native is donating $100 million to Northeastern University to establish a graduate school and research center in Portland, Maine. And it has 10 companies, including Jackson Laboratory, signed as founding partners. So I really believe in this. I think it's an absolute necessity for this community, and it's just a testament to how we can all work together to make it happen.
I should add too, if anyone has any questions for Brenda or myself, we're more than happy to answer.
Capital Planning Committee has started we have had 1 meeting. We have a couple more scheduled. So that's the process. We have 3 community members participating in that committee. And that's to we review all of the capital items for this budget and 5 years out, and make recommendations that will come back to the council during our budgeting process. Any other committees? All right, seeing none. Citizens' comments. This is part of the agenda where citizens can bring up any issue that's not on the agenda, speak on any topic. We will move on. Presentation of awards. We have 2 awards to present. Tyler Kennedy could not be here this evening. He's being recognized for 5 years with the Ellsworth Fire Department. And we have Michael Harris being recognized for 15 years with the Ellsworth Wastewater Department. So, the City of Ellsworth proudly presents the Certificate of Service to Mike Harris in recognition of your 15 years of service as wastewater superintendent for the Ellsworth Wastewater Department. Your devotion to duty and loyalty to the community have contributed to the improvement of the City of Ellsworth. Presented this 13th, we were supposed to present it last month. Presented this 10th of February 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Also, while you're standing here, Mike coached the Ellsworth Elementary Middle School varsity team to the championship. They won this weekend.
Thank you.
Remember whose son got called up to varsity?
Oh, my last one, my freshman, my fourth son. So, have a good night, everybody.
No unfinished business. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, all items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Number 9, Council Order Number 022000, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector for approval of a real estate purchase installment contract repick between the City of Ellsworth and Jenny Nichols. Item 10, Council Order Number 022001, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector to release properties redeemed during the 30-day redemption period ending January 22nd, 2020 through quitclaim deeds. The complete list is available in the City Clerk's office, and authorize the city manager to release said properties through municipal quitclaim deeds. And item number 11, Council Order Number 022002, request of the city manager to appoint a representative and alternate to the Main Service Center Coalition. Would any councilors like to remove any of those? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, move approval as presented.
Second?
Motion, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? New business. Item number 12, public hearing and action on the issuance of business licenses. Colonial 1 LLC, DBA Colonial Inn, 321 High Street for renewal of a city lodging house license. I should just check everything's, with all of these are all set? Okay. Councilors, any? Open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Seeing no response, public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman, move approve the request of the Colonial for renewal.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Josie's Country Store, DBA Josie's Country Store, 126 Surrey Road for renewal of a city Class C license, victular and liquor, and renewal of upgrade to current state restaurant, Class 3 and 4, malt and vinous liquor license to include spirits, Class 1. Public hearing is open. Any comments? Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman, move approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
I was gonna say, we ought to table it, but
LGov's LLC DBA Governor's Restaurant, 253 High Street, for renewal of a city Class C license, victular and liquor, and renewal of a state restaurant Class 3 and 4 malt and vinous liquor license. Open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Public hearing is closed.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Sanjeeva Abasakara, DBA Serendib, 2 State Street, for renewal of a city Class C license, victular liquor, and renewal of a state restaurant Class 3 and 4 malt and vinous liquor license. Public hearing is open. Comments? Public hearing is closed.
Motion to approve the business license application for Serendip.
Second.
Motion a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 13, public hearing and action on amendments to the City of Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 57, Frenchman Bay Regional Shellfish Conservation Ordinance.
Thank you. So 10 years ago, the council had adopted the Shellfish Conservation Ordinance along with 6 other municipalities. The purpose of this ordinance is to preserve and manage the clamming resources in the Frenchman Bay region. At the same time, 7 municipalities formed the Municipal Joint Board to oversee the program through an interlocal agreement. Through that interlocal agreement, the City of Ellsworth was named the administrative municipality, which oversees the administrative duties, including licensing, reporting, financial oversight, and employing a shellfish warden. And the city receives $3,200 annually to provide that service. All the expenses and payroll for the program is received through licensing, municipal appropriations from the 7 communities, and fines and fees. With new staff and city council, the city has decided it no longer wants to employ a shellfish warden due to the lack of due to liability and the risk, and the city has no jurisdictional oversight within those 6 other communities of the clamming program. The city's been working with the Joint Municipal Board to try to find solutions to remove as a city employee, and we've worked with other municipalities. We've also contacted the county, and we've had no success. So we've been working with the city attorney, and we have found a solution. Rather than having a city employee, the Joint Municipal Board will contract through an RFP process, and we would contract with an independent contractor. And the city would continue to serve as the administrative municipality. Tonight, you would vote to make the changes to the ordinance as well as the agreement. Those are included in your packets this evening, and it will just change it from a city employee to a contracted position. And we also have a member of the Joint Municipal Board if you have questions regarding the board.
Councilors, any questions, comments?
What would the savings be? The actual dollars and cents savings?
We have not created a budget yet, so it's not funded through the municipalities. The program actually pays for itself, so there's no taxes involved in it, besides our municipal appropriation of $3,000 annually. So we're working on, this next step is to try to determine a budget.
Manager Cole.
Could add to that, currently, as the deputy city manager laid out, there's 3 roles, one of which is overseen by the city clerk, which is the licensing part of it. Another role is in the finance department, under your finance director, to handle the money. In both of these cases, both department heads have said that it's not a burden and they can handle it and are willing, from their end to keep going. It was in the police and in the enforcement end, it was becoming a burden, but not a financial burden, but rather an administrative burden. For you having a shellfish warden out in other towns, and the police chief and captain and others have to oversee this. So it may have some indirect benefits to the city, but it's a wash financially.
Correct.
Any other questions? Okay. We'll open the public hearing on the amendments to the City of Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Frenchman Bay Regional Shellfish Conservation Ordinance. Would you like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilors.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the amendments to the City of Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 57, Frenchman Bay Regional Shellfish Conservation Ordinance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? And do we need a motion for the agreement? Or is-
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Do you have,
move to approve the amendments to the Frenchman Bay Regional Shellfish Conservation Interlocal Management Agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
and that would be item 14 on the agenda, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Just for
I didn't
public
see that,
record and
yeah.
for
So,
tracking.
thank you. So that was, we approved the changes to the ordinance, and then item number 14 is council order number 022003, request to approve amendments to the Frenchman Bay Regional Shellfish Conservation Interlocal Management Agreement. And that was the vote we just took together. Thank you, Councilor Phillips. Which moves us to item 15. Council Order number 022004, discussion and action on adopting the recycling reform for Maine resolution. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman, and for allowing this to be on the agenda with your support. Gary Fortier. I serve with the Ellsworth Green Action Team, which last year we brought in front of you the single-use bag ban that we appropriately, as a council, delayed to let the state get their act together and do it statewide instead of hodgepodge all around. We bring to you tonight a request that you support the resolution, and in your packet, you should have 5 or 6 sheets of paper from us to support a legislation that has yet to have an LD attached to it unless it happened today. Going forward to form an extended producer liability or responsibility program similar to other issues in the state, like your bottle bill, your batteries, your tires, that would put more of the financial responsibility on the shippers or the manufacturers of that product that we can't recycle. I, for one, I've said this publicly before, the solid waste hierarchy in the state of Maine has a void in it. We should not be putting anything in a landfill that hasn't gone through a reduction in volume or burning. This is, to me, it's short-sighted not to at least burn this and make electricity out of it, but that's another topic. So tonight, I have our state legislature, Nicole Krahowski is here. I have 2 members of our Ellsworth Green Action Team that are willing to get up here and talk all night about the good, bad, and evil of recycling. But I will leave it at that. It's pretty straightforward. I'd ask your unanimous consent to allow David Cole, city manager, to sign this and send it on. We currently have a list of, this is about a month ago, Bethel, Brunswick, Harpswell, Kennebunkport, Kingfield, Lewiston, Limerick, Lubec, Manchester, Poland, Portland, Scarborough, Tremont, Whitefield, that have signed on, and I'd like to, I'd be proud to have Ellsworth listed on that list as moving ahead on appropriate recycling change. So I will yield the floor and my remaining 3 minutes to Nicole.
Congress.
Good evening, councilors. I am Representative Nicole Grahowski, resident of Ellsworth. Thank you so much for adding this to your agenda, and I don't want to take a lot of time because you guys are on a roll tonight. Very impressive. You should come to Augusta and teach us a few lessons maybe. So Gary really covered the topic quite well, and hopefully you've had a chance to look at the materials in your packet. But the overarching concept here is that packaging comes into our lives because of the items that we want inside that packaging. And it falls upon taxpayers to pay for the disposal of that packaging. It's really not the right place for that financial burden to be placed. It should be on the packaging right at the start and on the producers of that packaging. So in Maine, we spend $16 to $17 million a year just on getting rid of packaging waste, which is about, depending on the municipality, between 30 and 40% of all waste that we manage. So it's a significant portion. And some can be recycled and some cannot. And so this policy, which is used in 5 Canadian provinces and dozens of other countries, is a great way to promote recycling, to have it be affordable so that when the markets shift, our community can continue to recycle products. And it also helps incentivize better packaging and less packaging because producers who have to pay based on the amount they put in and the quality of what they put in have an incentive to change their packaging. And that has happened in other countries where this packaging reform exists. So I don't know, I don't want to go into a ton of details, not knowing how much you know and what questions you might have, but I am definitely happy to answer any questions. The concept of the resolution is to show the city's support for this approach of shifting the burden from taxpayers back to producers. It's not an endorsement of specific bill language. There's no way we could ever ask you to do that because the rate at which bill language changes, it would be impossible to keep that up to date. But really, it's an endorsement of the concept that it's no longer appropriate for the taxpayers to shoulder this burden. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the specifics of the legislation or the policies as they exist in other places.
So this is the portion where the meeting's going to go for a while.
You say you needed a
I
motion.
just have a couple, no motion yet. No motion yet.
You don't have to have
So-
questions, but I have many answers.
So I attended the presentation that you provided last month on this topic, and I read through, and the material included, I believe it came from the DEP on the an act to support and increase the recycling of packaging. That was part of the information that was passed along. So I'm assuming that a lot of that language will make its way into the legislation that will come out. So, so let me start by saying that the idea of removing material from our waste stream, I don't know anybody that's going to argue against that. I think the process of doing that, and this came up in that meeting in terms of, does this actually accomplish that goal? Probably not. Maybe on a long-term basis, if more states participated, it might. But this really is a tax on those companies to help support in terms of municipalities. So, but with that, I think it's also needs to be very prudent in terms of how we approach something like this. So when you talk about the $16 million of shifting that cost over to the producers, since Maine's a small state, the likelihood is that we're not going to change the producers' minds very much, and that $16 million will get passed back, or likely to get passed back onto the consumers. So all of a sudden, we now shift it from municipalities, well.
I can answer that question if you'll make it a question.
No, well, I will, and I'll give you plenty of time. So it also, in this, there's language about, so I'm concerned about the cost shifting. I'm concerned about the expense that it would take for purchasing material. I'm concerned with language that says in here, the department also enforces a section by banning the sale of products of those producers that fail to participate. What I heard initially was that this would be up to the producers, and if they didn't participate, they would pay a larger tax. But when I see language about banning sale of products, that really concerns me in terms of, as an overreach, the state trying to ban sale to force corporations to participate in something that, as you get down into the language of it, could change every 2 years in terms of what the market is around recyclables. So there's just a lot of questions about what the real cost is, the cost of standing up the entity that the state will contract with to collect. So it's not only the 16 million, it's whatever that cost is to set up that entity that's going to manage all of this. There are a lot of unanswered questions, and so ultimately, packaged all together, the question I have for you is, why not take the time to look at this, get cost data, and have a defined process, rather than just trying to push it through by selling it as though it's going to be cost savings for municipalities, because I'm not sure that it will be.
I appreciate the question, and I'll try to answer all components of it. I understand that if you haven't been involved in all of the minutia of this process so far, it might look like the state's not answered those questions, but we have actually, I share those same concerns. And so we've researched all that, and because there's the 5 Canadian provinces, including our neighboring Quebec, as well as the countries in the EU, India is also doing this, I think New Zealand, at any rate, we have so much data we can look at. What's phenomenal is that in the Canadian provinces that don't do EPR, which is extended producer responsibility, the cost of items is identical between those provinces. So the other provinces are now getting on board because they've realized that they are paying for other people to have better waste management, because the cost is being shifted to all consumers. So I would contend we're actually already paying for extended producer responsibility for recycling for Canadian provinces and for people in other countries. So we're missing out on an opportunity. We're already paying in for this, which kind of blew my mind, in all honesty. But the cost of products is the same, because people don't want to find out that they could drive over a provincial boundary and buy something for much cheaper. The cost that it does add to products is under a penny. So we're not paying a lot. The good news is that other places that are doing this, we're not paying a lot to help them, which is a good thing. So don't be too alarmed by the first statement. So that was an important question. One of the strengths of this legislation that I see is the fact that all Maine municipalities could have a more uniform recycling and waste management program in terms of what is accepted. So I think one of the challenges that happens when people move between communities is they're unaware of what can be recycled in that community. And it can shift in the community. We've seen that happen in the past year here in Ellsworth. So to have consistency will create a better outcome. We have a statutory goal of 50% recycling that's been on the books since, I think, the 80s. We have 37% recycling. Places like the Canadian provinces are in the 60 to 70% recycling. And they're paying less, actually, per capita than we're paying now for that outcome. So it's a shift in the management structure that results in a better outcome. And so that's why I'm supporting it, and that's why I spent a year researching the topic. The DEP has spent a significant amount of time prior to last year's legislation, which enabled them to work on this draft language that we have now. And other groups such as the Natural Resources Council of Maine has an entire employee who's dedicated to figuring this out and making sure that it's right for Maine. The other part I want to add about what does it mean for Maine to do this on our own is that there are multiple other New England states that see that we're just a little bit farther ahead than they are, and they are basically waiting to see our plan and what the details are so they can sync up with us so that we could have a regional management. And definitely Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont are in that category. I'm unsure about New Hampshire. But so it is a chance for us to be leaders and also to not I don't think we'll be out there on our own for very long. And other US states are considering it as well. And this is, I think, an important reaction to what happened when China stopped accepting our recyclables. We really have to start facing here at home, how can we change our system and better manage our waste? So I hope that answers some of your questions. And I've had more data even since that last presentation to add, so I appreciate you bringing them up.
Councilor Cap?
Now, the cost in Canada in these provinces, I would argue that, from experience, that it is higher. Not just because of the value-added taxes, but the overall cost. And that's why we have a booming economy in Maine, in part because Canadians do come over to purchase goods here because they are so expensive in Canada. And I would like to see some real numbers on what the actual cost added of a program like this would be. And then, of course, for food packaging, what's the increased rate of spoilage? For fragile packaging, what's the increased rate of breakage? And are those costs added on to the consumer as well?
So I'm sorry if I was confusing. The cost, when I talked about the cost being the same, it's the same for neighboring Canadian provinces that do and do not have this program. Our cost is obviously not the same for the reasons that you elaborated. But the cost in those provinces that they found added to the packaging is, as I said, roughly a half a penny to a penny. And I would argue that that's the right place to put the cost. So if I as a taxpayer am very conscious about how much packaging I bring into my life, I'm being asked to pay for packaging that other people introduce to our waste stream on a basis based on how big my property is and what my valuation of my property is. So I would personally think it's more equitable for any cost that there is to be placed directly on the product.
Just an example, we have a place in St. Andrews, wanted to get some simple hand soap, you know, the soft soap thing, just a pump dispenser. And I was in St. Andrews and I went to the grocery store and one of those little soaps was $5.99, whereas just over the border that same soap was $1.99. And I would argue that it's a lot more expensive because of government regulations on such things, and the less, I would believe that it would be better to educate the public in better choices in what they purchase, rather than have a government tell the manufacturer that this is what you have to do. Does that make sense?
It's a matter of opinion, I think. St. Andrews is not in a province that has extended producer responsibility. And the goal of this legislation is to create a market that incentivizes behavior that helps the environment and helps our taxpayers.
I do want one question that you didn't touch on, because this is important for me in terms of if I'm going to support something, I want to be able to, there are consequences for it. It's not the waste stream, that's not the issue for me. That's not the concern. Promoting having better packaging and recycling, that's not a concern for me. I think some of the pieces of the way that it's being imposed on producers and jumping from where we are now to, well, if you don't get on board, you can't sell in Maine. And that's a pretty stark place to go, dramatic change that can impact on our population, it can impact on our businesses. And I'm just wondering why that language would need to be in place when, in fact, if they're not participating in terms of not changing their packaging, they're paying into the plan. But this is suggesting that they will not be able to even sell if they don't participate.
So thank you for bringing that question back up. My knowledge about that is that in other jurisdictions where that's been done, everyone has complied. So there hasn't been suddenly soft soaps no longer available. the reason that's in there is because it's sometimes easier for companies to just pay fines than to participate. But we've given multiple options for participation, so a company can manage its own packaging waste stream and report that to the DEP, and then they don't have to participate in this program. Additionally, one of the really interesting points, and again, it helps that we have neighboring provinces, is that there's over 500 brands that pay in Quebec that sell here in Maine. So they are already used to this system, and that's because, you know, many of our products come from multinational corporations that are quite large. So they are dealing with these systems all over the world. There are exemptions in the bill as written for companies that have less than $1 million of revenue here in Maine. Companies that are Maine companies with a single point of sale. So if there's a Maine business owner that's making a product and packaging it and selling it from their storefront, they're exempted if they have less than 1 ton of packaging material. So essentially, that cuts out the really small folks who we would be worried that this would be a management burden for them. And basically it's, I forget the number, but a couple hundred companies account for over 80% of the cost of these programs in other places. So we're talking about the Unilevers of the world. They're already doing this. They're just waiting for the US to figure out that we could do it too, and that it's effective.
Councilor Blanchard.
With all due respect, when I hear a senator or representative tell me that something will cost about a penny, I'm reminded of a statement years ago: if you like your insurance, you can keep your insurance. That didn't work out either. Having been in business and buying packaging, when I made changes in the packaging that I needed, it cost me a whole lot more than just a penny per piece. I passed that increased cost to me onto the customer through higher prices. It's the nature of the beast. Any retailer is going to pass on increased costs to the customer. My other concern I have, it's quoted in the letter from the Green Action Team, that this language has not yet received its final formatting as a draft bill. It goes on to say, although details of the final bill may change before it goes to a vote by the legislature. Those two statements conflict with your request and the Green Team's request to have us back this proposal. It would be akin to me asking the citizens of Ellsworth tonight to approve Ellsworth's FY21 budget. For all intents, we haven't met on it, we haven't discussed it, we haven't, it hasn't even been submitted to us. I would not ask them to approve a budget. And I think it's premature of the Green Action Team to ask us to approve, to be on board with this proposal when there is no final, nothing has been finalized, and Lord knows when it gets to the legislature that things will change in this proposed bill. Therefore, I'm hard pressed to approve, to give my vote and upvote on this without having anything final written.
Thank you for the comment.
If I may jump in, since I presented, we're not asking you to approve the wording on the bill. We're asking you to come forward with approve and support the concept of an extended producer responsibility to pass the cost on to the producers of it. Chairman, Maine bottle bill. You don't sell a can of Coke in Maine if you don't participate. You don't sell a tire in the state of Maine unless you collect the recycling fee. You don't buy an automobile battery in the state of Maine without paying a core charge that you don't get back until you return the core. So we've got excellent track record in this state of making these programs work. And I think this is the next great thing. Council Phillips will remember years ago, we had a discussion that the next big thing that's gonna ruin the finances of the city of Ellsworth was solid waste control. And it's getting there with everything that we can't recycle in Ellsworth, or we choose not to, because there's no profit in it. We've gotta find a way to reduce that. And I truly think that this is a good start, and I'm not asking you to approve a bill tonight. We came to you asking you for support of the city going forward, and we'll bring, you can withdraw it at any time if the bill gets to the point where it tastes funny and you're chewing. But we're looking at the concept of extended responsibility to reduce. I just showed the representative a picture I took this weekend. I was gonna flash it up there, but the TV's not on, of all the packaging sitting on my back deck from a single $22 crock pot I bought to cook the fire department's beef stew. It was 2/3 of the volume of the box was packaging, and it's styrofoam and it's plastic. So that's going to PERC to get burnt up to make electricity. In other towns, it'll go straight to the landfill in Old Town because they're not doing anything with recycling. So we're trying to prevent all this stuff getting into the environment, similar to the plastic in the oceans that's killing the fish. We're looking support on the idea. We're not looking to wordsmith tonight. And if you feel you don't have enough information to do that, respectfully, then vote it down. But I would be honored to have Ellsworth sign on to this in the concept that you would like to see something done and put our name on it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with that. I think it's extremely important for us as a council and as a city to endorse the study or the concept. We're not, as former Councilor Fortier said, we're not voting for a bill. We're voting for a concept that's going to become increasingly more important to all of us as time goes on. When you see in some cities, when the garbage workers are on strike or something for a day or two, it doesn't take long for mountains of trash to begin to appear. I also think that if something can be worked out, that many of the people who package goods may find a way to package these goods more cost effectively and more efficiently. I honestly think that we need to start and get the ball rolling and show that we support the concept, and I'd like to see it done tonight.
Well, when it was said that, we all pay a lotto deposit, we all pay a tire fee, we all pay a battery core charge, but the point is, we pay it. The manufacturer's not paying that, the consumer is. And when you're going to increase the cost of production, that will be passed on to the consumer through inflation. I just think that educating the public through, economies are moved by consumer behavior. And if consumers themselves reject plastics, it will not, there's more and more things that the advertisement on it says, made from recycled materials. People want to do the right thing. People want to be stewards of the land. To deliberately pass that cost on to the consumer of forced change is, in my opinion, it's going to be harmful to consumers when they have to pay more for literally everything. And does this even cover online sales? It doesn't even mention whether or not, you know, something that you order online is gonna come from wherever, and who covers that? It's, you know, everything's made in China, or they say it's made in China, but I gotta put it together here. But I don't know if I'm really on board with the support of it yet.
May I answer some of those questions?
Sure.
Thank you. So we're already paying. We're paying through our tax dollars. Secondly, for all those people who want better packaging, and I absolutely agree they do, it's not there. It's not there at the stores. You're looking, I want to buy this, I don't know what,
Headphones.
yogurt? What was that?
Headphones, they're all in the plastic
Right?
bubble.
Do you see an option that has better or no packaging? Rarely. So if the consumers should ever have a choice, we have to create a system in which a choice will happen. Right now, the manufacturer's number one goal is to package the product as cheaply as possible. And we're stuck with that. Lastly, online sales are counted in this as well. So Amazon doesn't get to just have a free ride with the packaging they send into this state. They are counted for as well.
And what packaging is the alternative? Because right now we're looking at, for example, headphones come in the plastic, impossible to get into bubble that you have to literally cut open and hope you don't cut your hand in the process thing. And so what's the option? You can't really have a set of headphones that's sitting on a shelf unwrapped because you'll spread disease. And so then you're looking at paper options. Well, is paper really an option? Then you're gonna look at deforestation.
Councilor Blanchett.
You kind of took my question from me, Representative. What is the alternative? Part of the reason that some packages are as they are is to prevent shoplifting.
So, you know, I would point out here in Ellsworth, we can take, we can recycle number 1 in a cylindrical shape. We can recycle number 2. But what about all the other numbers? We don't have a place for those here. So a company that is incentivized to package in number 1 or number 2 might start doing that. And then there's a system for that to be claimed and reused,
So you would be,
for example.
is it correct to say that you would be in favor of not allowing box board? Ellsworth does not recycle box board anymore, cereal boxes, for instance. You would be in favor of telling manufacturers, no, you can't use box board anymore in that case?
No, actually, what I would be in favor of is if it could be economically viable for Ellsworth to continue to recycle box board. And that is what a program like this will do. Because those producers will pay in that fraction of a penny, and Ellsworth will say, we've had this much box board and we spent a couple $100,000, I don't know what it is, to get rid of the box board. Maybe $50,000, that's probably more reasonable, to get rid of the box board. And then you will get that money back for recycling the box board. That's the difference.
The producers will not pay that cost. They may write the check, but it's the consumer, it's you and I, that will pay that cost.
Absolutely agree. Somebody will pay. And I can continue to encourage you to consider that we are paying already and we're getting a worse result. So I would like to, I think there are some others who came that were interested in speaking on this topic. So if there are any new questions, I'm happy to answer them. But otherwise, I'd like to cede it to the other citizens who would like to be heard tonight as well.
Councilor Phillips.
Yeah, we can sit here and argue about this one way or another. It's a cost shift.
Yep.
Packaging, whatever, they're gonna package it, whatever way they feel they can get it here in one piece, and we're gonna enjoy it or not enjoy it, wherever it is. Packages are gonna come off, they go in a box, or they're gonna be recycled, they're gonna be burned. Taxpayers are gonna pay for that at this point. It's not the concern, not the corporation. It ends up being in our lap, comes out of our municipal tax, or your dollar bag fee, or whatever it is, we pay for it. This is a concept of perhaps moving it, the cost to those making the responsibility, and it's some hope, even though to the time it goes down to Augusta with Nicole's group and goes through the meat grinder and then hits the Senate, Lord knows what the thing will look like, what it'll have for teeth, but something will be out of it. And then some money will start coming back in, and it'll be a program that it comes back to the city. And it's actually a cost, so the consumer pays more, but if you decide to buy that and I don't, that's all right, you're responsible for getting rid of it, so it costs you 16 cents more. Okay, it was your choice to buy that. Or if you bought this and it was in a different package, that's still it. But it becomes a user fee, more or less, than a general taxation cost. But it becomes the person that buys the bags is paying for it because of the increased cost. But either way, I don't think, Mr. Chairman, that you can sit here for another 2 hours and argue this. You're not gonna change concepts to 2 or 3 people, so good luck.
Again, it is a cost shift, and I choose to buy my reusable glass bottle, because I don't have to throw it away. I can keep it for the next 50 years, and I don't have to throw it away. But to start potentially banning products because of the packaging, or, for example, we ban the plastic bag or we ban the plastic straw in thinking that we're somehow making a difference. And, you know, meanwhile, I go through the grocery store, I gotta pay a nickel now for a plastic bag at some locations, and meanwhile, I'm putting all my plastic goods that are wrapped in plastic and wrapped in paper and all this extra trash into my bag, which my groceries are separated by the other guy's groceries by a plastic bar, and then I'm gonna take my plastic credit card and swipe it through the plastic credit card machine, and then take it out to my car that's made out of mostly plastic now. We have to look at changing the behavior of the purchaser more than trying to ban products or, you know, punish consumption. I mean, we're in an economy. We want to promote a better economy with more responsible choices, not punish people for making the choices that they make.
Seeing no more questions, I will cede the floor to the other citizens.
So I'll just comment in terms of, conceptually, it's one thing, but I do think that, since we're being asked to support a bill, well, no, let me finish.
Okay.
The request is that going before the legislators, and before the committee will be a bill. It will be a bill that would be presented, and with that will be presented the support of municipalities who have signed on to support the bill that's in front of it. And you can call it a conceptual phase, but that's what will be presented. And it will be in that language. So I think it's reasonable to ask questions, and no one should be pigeonholed in terms of, boy, we don't support the environment, we're not looking for responsible stewardship of packaging, by raising questions. And there are some important questions, and I would bet that if we had the chance to poll everybody in this community, we would have different opinions on this. And so as a council that is going to endorse or not endorse, it's important to just raise some of these issues. I also think that this is a very reasonable point, and I raised this in your presentation. The state does not have a very good track record of holding true to passing back dollars to the municipalities. We're still not at 55% of education funding. We're still not supporting GA funding the way that it's supposed to be supported. So it's another legitimate question to raise, and I hope that these questions will go back to inform the making of the bill, since it doesn't exist yet. So that's why I raise these questions, is because I think the process is as important to inform the output than just blindly endorsing something that's not even been crafted yet. So conceptually, does it make sense? Sure, it can make sense to a point, but all the detail pieces, for me, rise to the level of, can I endorse the proposal that's getting to that concept? And those are the pieces that I just don't know enough about it, and looking at what DEP presented a year ago, which is going to be crafting this, it raises those concerns.
I just would like to draw councilors' attention to the actual resolution. I think we've lost track of that language, and if you have an opportunity to review it again, I think it establishes not an endorsement of a bill, but the concept which is laid out, it talks in there, it gives some whereases about the situation that we're experiencing here in Maine. And then it says, you know, based on these findings, we think that something that shifts the cost from municipalities to the producers is worth looking at. That would be my summary of it. That is a draft language. Certainly any municipality that wanted to sign on, if there were sections that people are uncomfortable with, could be edited. It's sort of the same as, you know, you signing an online petition. Does the bill that you originally told your legislator you wanted them to sponsor or to support come out the same in the end? Maybe not, but that person who represents you realizes it's important to my constituent that I do something about this topic. So maybe I'm just become more comfortable with gray area in Augusta, and I can understand if this council is not comfortable with gray area, but that is sort of what we're asking for here tonight, and certainly not intending to pigeonhole anybody or label any member as anti-environment or anything like that, but rather, I mean, the good news is, no matter what, I go back to Augusta and I continue to support this bill. So, and that's because I've had so many constituents contact me, like, what are we gonna do about recycling in Ellsworth? The presentation I gave had, I'd say, like 80 people there or so, and I got so many follow-up emails from that. So, you know, I feel very confident that people are supporting the topic, and that's why I'm continuing with the work that I'm doing. I would love to have the support of you all as people who also represent this city, but I can understand if that's not something that the council is comfortable with, certainly, so.
Hi, I'm Martha Dickinson. I'm also with the Green team, and I just want to urge you to really look over that resolution and to edit it, as Nicole suggested, if there are phrases that you want to change or you want to add something. As I agree, you know, it's really recycling, we've got to do a lot better in the state of Maine and in Ellsworth. Other communities, well, don't want to digress too much. But one thing I wanted to add was, you know, things like the bottle bill that have been so successful. The consumer doesn't pay for that. You do pay extra when you buy it, but you return it and you get that money back. I think the same's with tires and other things, isn't it? I think it is. So, you know, it's how you win and how it gets paid for. And if I could just buy my Stonyfield yogurt in a 1 or 2 plastic, I'd be very happy. Right now they're in number 5 plastic. I can't report that. But I can buy a more expensive. I can buy an organic yogurt from John Edwards for a little bit more that isn't number 2 plastic, I think. So anyway, so people can start packaging in 1 or 2 plastic, and this is all over the area. And so, you know, big manufacturers, big producers are gonna not have one plan for one state and one plan for another state in terms of packaging. Rennie's is an example of a company, Maine-based company, that took the lead on using cloth bags and paper bags because they were required by some municipalities to not use plastic, single-use plastic. So they provided other types of bags to all their stores. So they took the lead on that, and I think other producers will do this in the generalized packaging thing. Well, anyway, thank you. I didn't mean to go on like that.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robin Snyder Drummond. I am a resident in Ellsworth. I have lived here 6 months, and I joined the Green Action Team because I've been involved in recycling issues for 30 years as a volunteer in 3 different cities. I agree with Councillor Kaplan's point about education. I have seen there are solutions and there are ways, but then I don't always see that they get implemented. And that's been 30 years and the situation is not any better. Malaysia is not taking recyclables anymore. That's 2 major countries. So I agree that it's education. I think the education part comes when you present consumers with these options. I am very careful about avoiding plastic, so I buy stuff in glass. Then what do I do with it? But if I knew I could recycle it, I give it to my kids and they take it down to Somerville, Massachusetts, and they can recycle it there. But I agree with Michelle's point that Nicole's point that people need to be educated about how resources are used, where your tax dollars are going, and what are your choices. I feel that, I just lost my point. So anyhow, I think it's part of the education to help people see what the other options are. My nephew lives in Germany, and they have very specific products and very specific recycle bins, and it's very organized. And that's a whole education part. But they have a system that supports more effective recycling. So this is part of educating people about their impact on the environment and giving them a way to be more responsible. So I hope you will consider that.
Thank you. Councilors, what would you like to do?
My cup is half full, but it's made out of plastic.
Number one plastic.
So I could easily learn to bring a cup that I could use for the next 20 years. We'll see. Okay, next 10 years.
Cheers.
There's a silence.
There is, but I'm going to sit. I can sit it for.
What do you want to do?
Do you want to?
Either approve it or deny
Right,
it.
is there a motion? Is there not a motion? Is there?
I'll throw it. Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the resolve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of approving the resolve? All those against? Motion passes 4-3,
Mr. Chairman, move we adjourn.
Second.
and we are adjourned.